Go.
WikiSpeed Frugal Composites. If you were to ask a composites expert what should be my mold release agent, so in our case that block of foam we just played with, here's one in miniature. It's been machined by the CNC machine. That's the car number 1 out there. And then a finer pass, the same tool. And then a mold release agent has been put on here, so it will release. Because this is brittle. You put epoxy on it, and it's porous. It'll break off chunks of the mold. They'll say, here's what you can spray on, these different layers. You build them up, and you have this Teflon-style release agent. It's expensive, it's toxic. You need to do it in a vented paint booth, or worse. You can also use saran wrap. And you take plastic wrap and you put it over the top. And if you need it to get tighter, you wave a hairdryer on it. And it works better. So, we use plastic wrap in Team WikiSpeed. You can also use Vaseline. In this case, we put an enamel paint on. We realized we didn't need to do that. We don't even do that anymore. We just put plastic wrap on top. Wet layup is, we didn't actually do wet layup last night. It's where you identify your layup schedule. That's what sheets of composites you put on in what order. A simple and effective one, because we're always, what we use for the car body of car number 1, which is small arms fire resistant, it's super strong, is you take a layer of E-glass, S-glass, or R-glass, woven fabric. You lay it on top and you let it go. It drapes onto the shape of the car. Then you cut out the size you need. Then you take a layer of what's called biaxial mat. Its only purpose is to be thick. It's thick quilted mat. On the composite shelf in the back we have rolls of all these. You guys might be doing composites after lunch. You take this thick mat. It's fairly strong compressive strength, but has no flexural strength. You just wad it up. But it's thick, so it makes like the flange of the web of an I-beam. Then your sheet of your highest strength fabric is your outer sheet, because that's the one that gets most of the flexural strength. So that's carbon fiber. You'll have composites experts say, pay us a lot of money to do the composites validation. We need to know if we need to use a 3-harness satin, so it'll drape to the shape you need, or if we want to use monofilament or tow, where it's thick threads of composites going just the direction of your load path. The percentage gain's about 1% in strength to weight. Or you can use what's called plane weave. And the fabric is woven at 90 degrees, and you just set it on top in any orientation because it has an isotropic strength pattern. Set it on any way you want, so we just use plane weave carbon here. And you cut it out. Then you take the layers back off, you very carefully mix up the epoxy, mix it for at least 1 minute. We don't use phenolic resins because their off-gassing is smelly and a mild neurotoxin. Most companies use it because it's cheaper, and the person who's ordering it never uses the stuff. We use the much safer, slightly more expensive, and higher performing epoxy resin. There's also a company called Entropy Resins that makes one out of tree sap that is as strong as most industrial grade commercial resins, and it's biodegradable, but not in its cured form. It's awesome, environmentally friendly. We use it a lot. So you take off the plies, so you just have your bottom ply. That's called your layup schedule. What plies lay up and what direction the fabric is oriented. If you're using plane weave, you don't have to care what direction the fabric is oriented. So you lay up your first layer, carefully mix up the resin for at least a minute, and then quickly just dump it out. Because as resin sits together, it generates heat. The more of it that's there, the hotter it will get. If you have a cup of resin curing, it can explode or flame. If you pour it out and it's spread out, it doesn't get very hot. It just cures. So you mix it up for at least a minute and then pour it across the top. Empty that cup out. Then take either your hand in a latex glove or a nitrile glove if you have a latex allergy. Those are all on the safety shelf. Or a plastic squeegee about the size of a credit card, and you iron in the resin so it wets out the fabric. It's like the difference between a t-shirt with a few beads of Sprite that you spilled on it and one that's gotten totally soaked through. You can see when it's soaked through. And it clings tighter to the mold too, which is nice. Then you take the next layer, the biaxial mat that you already trimmed to shape in the dry layup. You set it down and you massage it on. Some of the resin starts to come up through. Mix up another batch if you need to, pour it on top, iron out the wrinkles. Then the carbon fiber layer, or the highest strength layer, that's the one you want furthest to the outside, just like an I-beam. It's going to take the majority of the stress. And just by pressing it down, epoxy will come up and might wet it all the way. But if you need more, mix up more, get it fully wetted. Then go have a beer, have dinner, come back, lift off your car. It costs us $800 to make an entire composites car body. That is the method.
You don't use vacuum bags?
Vacuum bags aid in ply consolidation, which is, you got these multiple plies, right? How tightly they sit together determines our strength to weight ratio. You can get really nerdy and say the ply angle of one has a weave and a